Will House Republicans impeach Joe Biden if they take back control? That's a possibility, according to The Hill's Mike Lillis. Several conservatives have already introduced impeachment articles in the current Congress, of course. Those articles accuse Biden of committing high crimes in his approach to several issues, including border enforcement, COVID, and the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
At least 8 proposals have been brought. All will expire at the end of this Congress, but some sponsors have vowed to revisit them next year. Obviously, with the Democrats in control, these won't see the light of day.
Right, because we're talking about the House of Representatives here.
Right. The hope is that if they do regain the House, as people have predicted, although I think that's increasingly on shaky ground, it's a possibility in a way that it wasn't at least before, that Democrats might actually keep the House, that will be a priority for Republicans. What do you think of that?
So Ted Cruz said this on a podcast the other day. I do think he was asked if they would if the House would impeach if Republicans took control of it again. Yeah, I do think there's a chance of that, whether it's justified or not.
Bold admission.
I would hope we would do it if it's justified. And then he says Democrats weaponized impeachment. They used it for partisan purposes to go after Trump because they disagreed with him. No, I think you could maybe, so the first impeachment, I think, was a little dicier as an issue, the one involving this supposed influence that Trump vis-a-vis Rudy Giuliani put in Ukraine to maybe do something about Hunter Biden. I say it's dicey because all of diplomacy is trying to get other countries to do things that are in U.S. interests. So it wasn't, to me, necessarily improper that we tried to. It was the thing he was trying to get out of the Ukrainians was itself improper, was an investigation or some kind of declaration. It was a little thorny, in my view, that specific one. The second time, no, as I've said a million times on the show, don't care if you don't want to hear it, I think the impeachment was completely justified and he should have been removed from office for the things he said that resulted in people storming the Capitol. That was different. There's not been a random mob attack that has occurred yet because of crazy things Joe Biden has said. Now, I'm for, as a libertarian, I think basically every person, every president, all the way back to John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington have abused their authority in some way. Sure. And, impeach them all, fine. I mean, not really, because that would be kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, there's impeachment and then there's
But presidents always violate their authority somehow. I think Joe Biden's federal vaccine mandate for employees, which was then reversed by the Supreme Court, was a gross abuse of his authority. Now, impeachment is supposed to be for, something, not just crimes, doing something that is then ruled unconstitutional, which is something every president has done.
Everybody does. Yeah, look, I think that all of the impeachments have been political to a certain degree, right back to Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. I don't think that anybody really imagined that was like a national security issue or some significant state transgression on his part. So there is something, I think, fair enough about conservatives saying we're going to do 1, 2. If you want to spend this time in the media cycle, ginning up ire against the president of the United States, even if you know it's not going anywhere, it's well within our rights. And maybe this is the new normal. Maybe every president now, for the time immemorial, just has to go through an impeachment trial.
And that would be pretty bad, I think, for our society if that will be like Banana Republic stuff. If every time the other political party retakes power, that's just what you do one day. Hey, good to see you all again. Now we're moving forward with impeachment of the president because they're a member of the other party. That would be very bad and unhealthy. Is this
the precedent that we set? I mean, they don't like Biden's border policy. There isn't even really an allegation that there's anything improper about it. They don't like it. So if a Republican implements a border policy, if the next Trump decides to build a wall and a Democrat says, we're going to impeach you over building a wall, I mean, this does get to be parity at a certain point, and it certainly doesn't help the ratcheting up of political discourse that we've been talking about a little bit today.
And Republicans should get it through their heads that if you don't like you have to defeat Biden in the election. You have to defeat Democrats in the election, and then you can reverse these policies. Actually do policy, reverse policies. They don't legislate according to, they don't do the things they say they're going to do because they just like to complain about it. They just like to tweet about it. Democrats do things on occasion.
On a very
Not enough
rare
for
occasion.
you, but they do things. Republicans just whine about everything, and it's so frustrating. This is a debate Kim and I used to have all the time. She's like, no, I think Republicans are doing things. I think they're just saying they'll do things. They don't actually do things.
Yeah, what was Trump's signature policy? This $1.7 trillion tax cut, the overwhelming majority of which went to the top fraction of income earners in the United States.
It's the one thing Republicans always do. Sure, tax cut.
Right,
which I support. It's fine.
But, I would love for Donald Trump and Republicans to advocate for tax cuts for poor and working class people, since they are now styling themselves
Donald Trump didn't. His signature campaign promise was the wall. He didn't build that.
He didn't build the wall, and frankly,
and to get out of Afghanistan, he didn't do that either.
He didn't do that either. So look, I would love it. I would love it if Republicans did things and they actually embrace the kind of populism that they say they care about by actually taxing the rich. A wealth tax is enormously popular. Put that IRS to work and actually target them to the richest Americans. If you have concerns about the deficit, tax the rich to shrink the deficit. Tax the rich to pay for these wars, or even better, end the wars and bring people home. I mean, that is a kind of legitimate populism that I think a lot of Americans can get behind, and it's right there on Republicans' lap. And instead, they're doing things like complaining about the student loan policy without proposing anything on the alternative in terms of fixing the underlying problem or dealing with the crisis that's facing students right now. And eventually, people are going to get sick of, in your phrasing, Republicans whining and hand-wringing about things without proposing alternatives.
They should propose things. We have ideas for them sometimes.
Apart from impeachment. Alternatives that aren't just impeaching Joe Biden.
Which I don't know that they're actually going to do. Again, they say they'll do it, but the members of Congress who have brought forward, I think we're talking about like Marjorie Taylor Greene type people who have brought these these arguments forward. Now, if Joe Biden commits, it is proper, it is appropriate to subject elected officials to sanctions, to impeachment, to criminal charges. We want to hold our government officials more accountable, not less accountable.
Yeah.
But doing that and not having it take on a tinge of just witch hunts against political opponents, it can be a difficult line to walk.
Yeah, and it's going to become the boy who cries wolf. God forbid that somebody actually does something that meets the standards.
Well, I think that's the kind of the Trump story a little bit, honestly, between the two impeachments.
Yeah.
The first one was a lot more of a wolf. There's not really a wolf. It was kind of not great, but does it act? Is it? Versus the second one, which was a pretty clear violation of like all the norms of that we've ever had, and some people I think did tune it out because well you just do this to every time you're mad at Trump, because they didn't do it before.
I think that's right.
All right, we'll have more Rising right after this.